risky financial change. One Friday, Jim got an email from Karen. It was the first thing he saw when he sat down in his office. "Great news! The younger kids are going to be at Grandma's house tonight, and the older boys will be gone at youth group. I made reservations for 8 at Palazzi's, Jim's favorite restaurant. If you can come home by 6, that'll give us a good hour and a half to enjoy the hors d'oeuvres, which I plan to be wearing. By the way, if you look in your briefcase, you'll find a Polaroid. Consider it your pre-dinner menu. Can't wait to see you. Your Karen." You know what Jim said to himself after reading that email? Keep in mind he was at a dead-end job. Financial pressures were mounting. His boss was a jerk who made Jim's daily existence a living hell. But even so, Jim closed the email and said to himself, "I'm the luckiest man alive." Having a great sex life is an exhilarating experience. It can bond a husband and a wife in a way that's unequaled in human experience. Knowing that your bride really does care for you, that your husband desires your body more than anything else, affirms a man and a woman in profound and multiple ways. Jim and Karen's kids benefited greatly from this email, by the way. It gave them a sense of security and happiness, making them think we're in the best family anyone could be in. Sexual fulfillment didn't come overnight for Jim and Karen, but when it came, it changed everything about their home. To tell you the truth, Jim would die for Karen. He'd take a bullet for her without thinking twice. There's nothing he wouldn't do for her. Mark and Brenda faced a sexual challenge of their own. They'd been sexually active before marriage, and both admit that sex was pretty exciting. But predictably for couples who engage in sexual relations before marriage, sexual relations cooled off not that long after the wedding. Mark didn't seem as eager as he had been before, and Brenda was far less adventurous. At first, Mark and Brenda thought it was just the kids. They got pregnant early on in the marriage, and now had 2 kids under the age of 5. Over time, however, sex became even less frequent, until eventually it was almost an embarrassing afterthought, something the 2 of them did because they thought, well, they should, at least once a month anyway. Mark had a well-paying job and a good boss, but he was under tremendous stress. As a salesman, if Mark performed well, he was rewarded handsomely. If he fell into the bottom third, he'd be fired. He was only as good as last quarter's numbers. Mark thought he had an account worth several $100,000 in the bag. It was just a matter of getting the company to sign. When he went to the purchaser's office, however, he was shocked to hear, "I'm sorry, Mark, but we decided to go with someone else." "You've got to be kidding. We've been working on this for 2 months, and last week you said it looked like a go. What do we need to do to earn back your business?" "It's too late for that," the purchaser said. "We've already signed another contract." Stunned, Mark walked out to his car in a daze. He instinctively answered his cell phone when it rang, but immediately wished he hadn't. "Hey, Mark," his boss yelled through the phone. "I thought I'd take you out to that new Italian restaurant for lunch to celebrate your closing of the Andreessen account." Mark wanted to swallow the cell phone right there. 5 hours later, after a lonely and very alcohol-laden lunch, Mark began to reflect on what his life had become. He had earned a 6-figure income last year, but his job security was always on the line, as his boss reminded him when he heard the news about the Andreessen account. How long had it been since he and Brenda had had any fun? Deciding to make a change, Mark called Brenda and confessed, "I've had a really crummy day. Can we just go out tonight?" It was an emotional cry from Mark, even more than a physical one. But Brenda didn't understand. She had a rush day herself. And because she'd lost touch with her husband and wasn't able to read the emotion in his request, she responded with a curt, "Mark, it's 5 o'clock. I can't get a babysitter this late. What are you thinking? You never give me any notice." Mark wanted to tell Brenda that he missed her. He longed for her to be the eager woman she used to be, who was willing to cut classes to fool around for a little bit. But he had already stuck his neck out once today, and look where that got him. So he went on the defensive. "Oh, forget it," he said, and hung up the phone. Mark stopped at a pub on the way home and shot pool until 11 p.m. He knew he'd catch a lot of flack from Brenda for being out so late, but she didn't understand the pressure he was under. Brenda also didn't understand that Mark masturbated 2 or 3 times a week, and every time he did so, he felt his desire for Brenda as a person